Analysis of competitive industry forces.
Competitive forces have the power to change the direction and economic viability of the firm. Michael Porter published his classic model of industry structure analysis in 1980. 39,40 The model focuses on 5 competitive forces arranged in an airport hub-and-spoke layout, that is, 1. The threat of new entrants, North Terminal, 2. The intensity of competitive rivalry, Hub, 3. The bargaining power of buyers, East Terminal, 4. The bargaining power of suppliers, West Terminal, and 5. The threat of substitutes, South Terminal. Entry barriers reduce the threat of new entrants, that is, economies of scale, expected retaliation, high brand loyalty, etc. If there are strategic groups within the industry, mobility barriers within the industry will inhibit or prevent movement from one strategic group to another. In an industry, firms within strategic groups follow similar strategies, whereas different strategic groups within the industry follow different strategies. In Porter's analytical framework, the subject of the analysis, for example, NGC, is positioned in the central box, and it is the center of the analysis. Rivalry determinants and the determinants of buyer power, supplier power, and substitution structure the nature of the industry and give the analysis depth and breadth. The 5 forces operate in the external environment of the firm and have the potential to create opportunities and threats for firms in the industry. The basic logic of the model argues that the more intense the competitive forces are, the lower will be the long-run return on investment and vice versa. Analysts use the model to analyze the structure of industries and to position firms in their industries with the intention of creating sustainable competitive advantages, that is, sustainable levels of excellence in free cash flow generation. Free cash flow is the preferred measure because cash pays the bills, cash creates and sustains credit, and cash and credit secure assets that generate more free cash flow. Therefore, it is important to never run out of cash or credit. 41 Analysts typically use free cash flow in the valuation of assets, for example, payback, net present value, and internal rate of return criteria. Otherwise, they use some form of asset valuation, for example, replacement cost. Sometimes analysts focus on profit as opposed to free cash flow. However, as the statement of cash flows clearly shows, profit is only a partial measure of cash flow. It is the first line on the statement of cash flows, and it excludes significant sources, uses, of cash. Analysts want to know how the industry creates value, that is, free cash flow, and who captures the value created. They envision the firm competing with its competitors, that is, the intensity of competitive rivalry. In addition, Porter argues that the firm is also competing with its buyers and suppliers. Buyers typically want lower prices, higher quality, longer warranties, etc. If the switching costs are favorable, they might buy a competitor's products or play one firm against another. The greater the bargaining power of buyers is, the greater is the buyer's share of the value created by the industry, everything else being equal. By contrast, suppliers want higher prices, lower quality requirements, less onerous warranties, etc. The greater the bargaining power of suppliers is, the greater is the supplier's share of the value created by the industry, everything else being equal. Porter saw substitute products as coming from outside of the firm's industry. For example, beef, pork, and chicken are substitutes. The substitute serves the same function, for example, nutrition, yet it is different, for example, in appearance and/or chemical composition. Thus, it can place a ceiling on the price the firm can charge for its product, thus limiting the producer's value creation possibilities. Last, if the threat of new entrants is high and low prices are a barrier to entry, it could further limit the producer's value creation possibilities. An industry with strong buyers and suppliers, economically viable substitutes, and entry barrier pricing, could be very unattractive. Unattractive industries often find it difficult to raise capital, debt or equity. Analysts use Porter's model to understand the structure of an industry and the forces shaping the development of the industry, past and future. Typically, they want to learn how to position the firm in the industry to create a sustainable competitive advantage. Thus, using Porter's model to analyze the aerospace and defense industry might reveal the following.